Chubby Tubby Owl, the Chibi Chubby Tubby Owl, the Chibi Chubby Tubby Owl, the Chibi Chubby Tubby Owl.
Hey everybody! Welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. We have another scrap project for you this week, and this one is super duper cute. I'd like to introduce you to our Chibi Chubby Tubby Owls. These little guys take up next to no time and no materials to make, and since the summer weather's here, you can see I've been sort of inspired by fruit. I've got a strawberry, a pineapple, and a watermelon inspired little owl, and this little guy on the end looks a bit like an Easter egg. You can literally use whatever color combination you like. There really isn't a bad one. And just a couple of little beads and a little bit of time, that's all you need, and I swear you'll want to make a dozen of them. So without further ado, let's grab our hooks, grab our yarn, head on over to the craft table, and we will stitch up some Chibi Chubby Tubby owls together. Our Chibi Chubby Tubby owls are made using small amounts of leftover yarn. I'm using worsted weight size 4 acrylic because I have a lot of it. You're going to want white for his eyes and yellow or orange for his beak, but the rest of his combination is completely up to you. So I've got sort of a strawberry inspired one with a red bottom and a green top and little flecks of white. I have a pineapple inspired one, so his top is green as well, but his bottom is a darker yellow with sort of lighter yellow over stitching. Same color as his beak, actually. And I also had some leftover Easter yarn, and I like this one. He looks a bit like an Easter egg. So you need scrap amounts of yarn. You're going to want 2 small black beads and a needle and thread because we are sewing a little black bead into the middle of his eyes. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, stuffing, any kind will do. Today I'm using chopped up cotton shirt, and a hook. I'm using a 4.25 millimeter hook, or a G6. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. We're going to begin with a cinch circle. Now I'm using pink because I'm going to make a watermelon inspired Chibi Chubby Tubby owl today. And once you've got your cinch circle made, you're going to work 6 single crochets into it. Remember to work over that little short tail, because when we're done our 6 single crochets, that is how we're going to cinch the circle shut. Once you've single crocheted 6 into your cinch circle, grab the short tail, cinch it shut, and we're working in the round, so we're going to work directly into our first single crochet. I'm going to work over top of my short tail, but you can just hold it to the back if you want and stuff it in later. We're going to go from a stitch count of 6 in row 1 to a stitch count of 12 in row 2. So we're going to work 2 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. So 2 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. I'll see you at the end of row 2 and you'll have 12 stitches. At the end of row 2 we have 12 stitches. We're still increasing. So for row 3, we're going to work 2 single crochet into the next stitch, or the first stitch of row 3, and 1 single crochet into the stitch next to that. And that is your little repeater. 2 single crochet into the next stitch, single crochet into the next. You want to repeat that all the way around, and at the end of row 3, you'll have 18 stitches. At the end of row 3, you should have 18 stitches. For rows 4, 5, and 6, we are just going to single crochet in each stitch around. So your stitch count will not change, it will still be 18 at the end of every row. So just work that same color, 1 single crochet per stitch, all the way around, and I'll see you at the end of row 6. At the end of row 6, you want to even up your stitches. So here's my first row. Here's where it turns into my second row. I always use that as a little indicator of my start point. I roll all the way up to the top and I've brought my stitches around to match that. So you may have finished your row somewhere back here. Just add a couple more single crochets. It doesn't change your stitch count and it gives you a nice even top edge. That's it for color number 1. You're going to slip stitch into the next stitch, grab your scissors, fasten off, and you can just tuck that to the inside. Now, if you're doing something fancy, like a little strawberry, which has little white flecks, or a pineapple, which has sort of little cross stitches, you want to pause here and grab your highlight color. So for me, that's going to be black. You can cut a little bit. You don't need too much. Grab your yarn needle. And this is only if you're adding little highlight colors. If you're just doing sort of like the simple guy here, like the Easter egg, you can jump ahead to the next step where we continue on with the next color. But if you want to add some little highlights, this is my trick. So I'm just going to add some random specks. These are going to look like little watermelon seeds. So I bring my yarn from the inside to the outside. I don't pull it all the way through. I leave a little tail up because I'm going to use that to knot up when I'm done. And then I just put my hook, or I should say my needle, back through the entire thing, bring it out somewhere else, all random, doesn't matter. Don't pull too tightly. And then maybe I'll work another one in a different direction, and I'll scoot up here. And you want to keep your finger on that little extra tail, at least for a little while, just to make sure that it doesn't run out. And I think I'll just make that one go randomly sideways. And you'll just continue this, working little tiny short stitches all the way around if you're doing something like a watermelon, like me, or a strawberry, or anything else that has little tiny seeds in it, like a raspberry. And if you're making something like a pineapple, you just make your stitches long and then tack them. So do a whole bunch going in one direction and then do a whole bunch crisscrossing them going in the other direction. And that just gives you a bit of a lattice work. So you can work away at that for a little bit, and I'll see you when you're done. Once you're done working a bunch of random short stitches, or whatever you're doing, all the way around the bottom of your owl, you can bring your yarn back up to where your short tail started, and just gently knot these together. You don't want to pull too tightly because you don't want to pull your stitches. Tightly because you don't want to pull the whole thing out of alignment. You want it to keep that nice round shape. So just knot it twice, and then you can snip your excess yarn if you have any, and just tuck that inside. All right, now we want to change colors. So we want to grab our color that's going to be the upper part of our little owl, and for me that is green. We're going to begin with a slip knot. Make sure it's not too tight or too loose. Grab your owl, and where you fastened off your yarn from the last row, find the stitch right next to it, and we're going to join our yarn there with a single crochet. There we go. Joined with a single crochet. Now you're just going to single crochet in each stitch around. And when you get back to the beginning, you should have 18 stitches, and I'll catch up with you there. I've worked 17 stitches all the way around. I'm back at the beginning. I want to work number 18, and I'm going to put it right underneath where I knotted off. So right there, that's number 18 for me. And now I'm just going to continue right into the first new stitch I added, and I'm going to keep single crocheting all the way around. So you want to do 2 more rows. Row 8 and 9 are just single crochet in each stitch all the way around. You'll still have 18 stitches, and I'll see you at the end of row 9. You should have 3 solid rows of your second color, and once you've finished the end of row 18, you can make sure you're even with that last stitch of your first row of your second color, and as long as it looks even up here, you can just add 1 more single crochet because we want to get just a bit past that. And don't fasten off. You can pull up on your hook. We're going to pause now to stuff our little owl. So that's all of the bottom and the top. We're going to pause, grab your stuffing, and you can just carefully stuff your owl. Nice and firmly. You don't have to put in too much. You don't want to be able to see your stuffing through the stitches, but you want to add enough that it's nice and firm so he can sit comfortably on his little bum. Once you've stuffed your owl, you want to make sure it's sitting just a little bit below the surface because you need to be able to pinch it shut. So you don't want to overstuff it so that you can't completely pinch the top shut. So if you've got too much, take a little bit out. Grab your hook and put it back in that loop. And now we're going to close up the top. So we're going to start by making one of his little tufty ears. And we're going to be working through both sides of the owl at the same time. So there was our last stitch. We're going to find our next stitch. So I'm going to highlight it here for you. That's going to be the first stitch, and the one just behind, so that stitch there will be the other stitch that we use in this little close-up. But we're going to double crochet. So wrap once, find that first stitch of side 1 and the stitch that corresponds on side 2, and double crochet. You're going to double crochet once more into the same pair of stitches, chain 1, and we're not quite done with that pair. One more double crochet into it. There we go. Into the next set of stitches, we're going to single crochet. So just pick up the next set and single crochet into it. We're going to slip stitch across the next 4 sets of stitches. So try to keep that stuffing under control. And slip stitch through the next set. Slip stitch through the second set. Slip stitch through the third set of stitches. And one more slip stitch. Alright. That should leave you with 2 sets of stitches. So there's going to be a stitch on the end that is sort of like turns the corner. Just ignore it. We need this set, and then we're almost done. So we're going to single crochet through the second last set of stitches. And now we're going to repeat in the opposite direction the other little ear tuft. So double crochet through the last set of stitches. Chain 1, and work 2 more double crochets through that same set of stitches. And that is almost it. Slip stitch right through the same set. That just kind of closes off the little corner of the ear. Now we're done. We can grab our scissors, snip our yarn, and we're going to fasten off. Before you go any further, you want to grab your yarn needle and take that tail and weave it in across the back stitches a few times. You can trim off any excess. Now that we're done the base of our owl, so here's his body, we're going to work on his little pieces. So we're going to make his beak first. So you want to grab your yellow or orange yarn, and we're going to start with a slip knot. Make sure it's not too tight or too loose, and chain 3. Once you have 3, you want to skip over the first chain from the hook and slip stitch through the second chain from the hook. That leaves 1 chain left. You're going to half double crochet into it. And now we're going to repeat. Chain 3, skip over the first chain from the hook and slip stitch through the second. That leaves 1 chain, half double crochet into it. So you should have 2 little triangles. And now you're going to slip stitch right into the base of your short tail. That's where your first chain was, or your slip stitch. Your slip knot, I should say. You're going to slip stitch right into the base of that to join. You want to cut yourself enough tail that you can sew your little beak to the face of your owl. So a few inches. Fasten off. Then you want to grab your yarn needle. Look at the back side of your beak and just pick up a few of the stitches, little stitch pieces across the back, whatever you can grab with your needle. And you're going to weave your little short tail through them. Give it a little tug just to make sure you haven't pulled it out of alignment. And then you can trim off that little tiny bit of excess. There we go. And that is his little beak. Hoot, hoot, hoot. Now we're going to make his eyes. So I've got one finished here. We're going to get our white yarn, so you need white yarn and your crochet hook. You don't need very much of this at all. You're going to begin with a cinch circle. And just like at the beginning, you're going to single crochet 6 into it. Once you have 6 single crochet, grab your short tail, cinch up your circle, and then we're going to join with a slip stitch to the first single crochet we made. And that's it. Cut yourself enough tail that you can sew the eye to your owl. Fasten off. Grab your yarn needle. We're going to weave in that little short tail across the back. So you flip over to the back and just get your needle through a few of those stitches. And you can do this underneath a few of them. There we go. And if you have anything left over, you can just trim it. That's the white made. Now we want to put in his little tiny pupil. So you're going to grab your sewing needle and thread. So I'm using black thread for my black bead. I like to double up my thread, so I've put thread all the way through it. I've doubled up the ends. So you can see I've got 2 ends here, so they're together. I'm going to tie a little knot at the very bottom of it. Pick up your eye, flip it to the back, and I'm going to anchor my thread by picking up the back side, a bit of the back side of one of the stitches, pulling my thread almost all the way through, and then putting my hook right, or my needle right between the 2 threads, and that anchors it nice and neatly. Needle goes right through the center. I'm going to grab my little bead, and then I'm going to sew it down by going through little bits and pieces of the edges of the stitches, pretty much sticking to the center. So I'm going to try and make sure that I go through different stitches, little bits of the edges close to the center, just enough that I know that it's sewn down really well. So you can see me coming through the back here, but not so much that I end up showing too much of that black thread. And I'm going to do this 2 or 3 times. Since it's doubled up thread, it's fairly sturdy. Once you're satisfied that your bead's on there nice and tightly, flip it over. Pick up either some of your thread or a bit of the yarn, and we're going to just tie a simple knot. I always try to do it twice because I want to make sure it's good and on there and it's not going to come undone. And once you've done that, snip your thread, and that is your eye. So you want to go ahead and make 2 of those. We have our owl, we have 2 eyes, and we have a beak. So now it's time for assembly. You want your yarn needle. We're going to start with his beak. You're going to thread up the tail you left behind with your yarn needle. And I like to put the beak right in the middle on that first color change row. So I'm going to use these 3 stitches across that color change row to anchor down my beak. So I'm going to put my needle through the first, it's just the top loops, and then right through the middle, somewhere close to the edge of those stitches, right through the middle of the beak. There we go. I'm going to hop into the middle, bring my needle out through the middle of the beak, and pick up the next stitch across that color change row, and right back through the middle of the beak. And then I'm going to go right over top of the edge, the other side, and through the other stitch. So I've flipped it upside down. You can just see I'm kind of going back through that next stitch, and I'm going to go right through the other side edge of the beak. And just to make sure it's on there nice and tight, I'm going to repeat that going back the other way. So you can work a few more stitches going back across your beak just to make sure it's not going anywhere. Once you've finished sewing on your beak, you want to take your yarn and go into your owl and push your needle all the way through to the back, get past all that stuffing. So you don't want to have, there we go, make sure it's nice and tight against the body. And then you're going to weave it through some of the stitches, but across the inside of them so that you can't really see the color. So you see I've gone through, you can almost see my needle through there. I've gone through the stitches, but inside so that you can't really see the color showing through. And then I'm just going to bury the rest of the yarn in the body of my owl. So I'm going to pull it back. There we go. And then I'm going to wiggle it back and forth until it completely disappears into the body of my owl. That's his little beak on. I'm just going to pinch up his ears a little bit here. Now we can put on his eyes. You can do one at a time, obviously. I like to decide where I want them. So you might want to hold them both there. I like to have them on either side of his beak, touching his beak. Now because they're small, and if you're nimble, you should be able to just keep your thumb on the eye in place while you work the first few stitches of your eye. I will pick up a piece of a stitch of the owl and go right through the edge of the stitch of the eye. And then the next one. Pick up a piece of a stitch of the owl and right through the whole stitch along the eye. And I'm going to back up, make sure it's not moved, and keep working that little pick up a stitch. Nice tight little stitches all the way around. until you're done. Once your eye's sewn down, take your needle, pass it into the owl and out through a space between stitches, somewhere in the middle of the forehead, and just pull the rest of that tail out and leave it there. You're going to go sew on the other eye, do the same thing, pull the rest of that tail out through the same hole, and then we'll knot our ends together and weave the whole thing back into our little owl. Once you have both the ends of your eye pieces coming through the same little place, just knot them together, nice and tight, at least twice. And then you can poke the whole thing back through that same space and into the body of your owl. And if you grab it with your needle, you can wiggle it back and forth until the whole thing disappears into the body. And that's that. Great! And there you have it, one Chibi Chubby Tubby little owl in the inspiration of a watermelon. And that is a Chibi Chubby Tubby owl. If you guys would like to see other Chibi Chubby animals here on the show, let us know in the comment boxes down below. And if you're not already subscribed, take a moment to hit that subscription box and the little notification bell next to it, because that will give you a notification every time we upload a video here on the Jayda InStitches show. And with that, I would like to take a moment to thank our subscribers. A little while ago, we reached the 100,000 subscriber mark. And as a way to mark the occasion, YouTube sent us this silver play button. We're really proud of it, and we wanted to thank all of you and YouTube for helping us get there. And that's it for this week, everyone. We will see you again soon on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have an awesome week. Bye!